Okay, so good afternoon and welcome to this session, role of the team leader. So we're going to be looking today at what makes a good team leader. So my name's Rob Burley, Director of Cornerstone Resources, HR consultancy. We've been going for nearly 5 years now. And Nicola Hilliker is here, one of our senior HR consultants who's going to be co-presenting. Can you click on the slide, please, Nicola? So we've just left our contact details here. If you do have any questions after the session that you think about, please feel free to drop us an email or give us a call. We'll be happy to talk through that. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so what do we do at Cornerstone Resources? Well, basically anything you can think of HR related. We can help with recruitment needs, contracts and policies. We work with HR systems. We deal with some of the more tricky elements of employee relations, disciplinaries, grievances, etc. Change projects. So we've supported customers with restructures, redundancy programs, and the like. But we also do a lot of the sort of the more the nicer to have things like coaching. We can advise on employee benefits and how you can enhance a package that will engage your teams, which doesn't necessarily cost a huge amount of money. And we also, as today, can help with training support. So whereas today is the first of our series of webinars, which we'll go through at the end to give you advance notice of what's coming up, we can also deliver bespoke training for your organization. So if any of these areas are of interest in the future and you're not currently making use of that, then you know where to come. So Nicola is going to do most of the presenting today. I will be keeping an eye on the chat. So if you do have any points that you want to make at any point during the presentation, please drop it in the chat and we'll pick it up at the appropriate time. Also, if you think of any questions, pop it in there and we'll have plenty of time at the end of this webinar to go through those. Now, Nicola, I muted everyone when you joined, so you must unmute yourself before we get started, otherwise this is going to be quite a quiet session.
Got it.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll pass over to you then.
Okay, great stuff. Right, let me just get to the next slide. Okay. So these are our session objectives today. So this is what we're aiming to cover throughout the session. I'm not going to read this list out for you. You can have a quick glance down there, but rest assured we'll cover all of these topics within this bite-sized learning session. So we're going to essentially, in a nutshell, cover sort of what you need to do as a line manager, but also more importantly, I think how you should do that as a line manager. So because I think the two go hand in hand. So it's not just about the tasks and things, it's the behaviours that you need to display in leading and managing. Okay, so next slide then. So as a bit of an intro, got some quite handy visuals here, and the visual on the left hand side really sort of struck me when I saw this. I think I saw this on LinkedIn, and it says it there: your manager has as much impact on your mental health as your partner. So just take a minute for that to sink in. We spend a lot of our day at work, don't we? Sort of typically about 8 hours. Some of us, if their partners are busy or work shifts, may not spend as much time with their partner at the end of the day as they do with work colleagues. So it's really important that you as a manager kind of remember that and that you do have that impact. And then secondly, there as a leader, people determine your reputation, but only you determine your integrity, and that's key as a line manager, that you lead and manage with integrity. Okay, so next slide then. So in terms of what leadership and management is about, some people do use these terms interchangeably, but they do mean different things. So I thought a helpful way to kind of define it would be to say that leadership focuses on people, whereas management focuses on how things get done. So there's a distinction there, and we do have a visual coming up, which you'll be able to see and study in detail when you get your slide deck after the training. But both of these things do incorporate an awful lot of other aspects, as you will see now. So yeah, hopefully that's not blown your mind in terms of the range of things, but Rob and I could probably add other things to that list, because in our experience in HR, lots of things can get thrown at managers in their time. You know, lots of things to tackle, but essentially leadership is about the people, and management is about sort of the how, and very much about the things that you need to do in the business. Okay, so the importance of good managers then. So good line managers are the interface between the organization and its people. You're very much kind of a conduit, if you like. So starting at the top, they help achieve the organization's aims, implement people, policies and practices, and ultimately, hopefully create a happy and engaged workforce. So that's kind of like a bit of a nutshell what your job's about, if you like, as a line manager. And in how you lead and manage, there are different styles that managers can and need to adopt at different times. So you will probably have a more dominant management style as an individual in terms of how you more naturally lead and manage. But there will be times when you need to switch your natural style to the style that's necessary in the moment. And that might be because of something's happened in the business, potentially sort of an emergency situation, potentially some sort of crisis, where it might be that your natural style is to be more of a kind of a supporting and empowering manager, but you have to go into quite directive mode because of the necessity of the situation that you're faced with. So these are kind of the four sort of main management styles: so directing, supporting, delegating, and empowering. And it might be that you naturally feel you're aligned to one of those styles, but as I said, you will need to adapt and be flexible depending on the person you're managing and sometimes the situation that you're facing as a manager. Now, one of the things that we will send you after the training is actually like a management style questionnaire. So if you're new to management, or you're not sure sort of what's your style currently, we can send you that questionnaire, and then it will kind of pinpoint where your sort of dominant style is, and they can do a bit of self appraisal and analysis of that after the training session. Okay, so one thing that we did want to point out, though, is that in terms of management style, our genuine belief is that fear should not be a style of management. So we've put management styles and no fear. We feel that fear has no place in management and leadership. And if anyone uses it as a strategy to get people to work, then that person really has no place in leading or managing anybody. The 4 styles that we spoke about can help you to achieve the goals that you need to achieve as a manager, and to get the best out of your people. But kind of the more, you know, an old school style, and some of us may have experienced it ourselves in our careers, genuinely has no place in the modern workplace. Okay. So in terms of adopting your style, as I said earlier, sometimes we need to adopt depending on not just on the situation, but on the individual. So another way to look at it will be aligned to the person that you're managing. So down the right-hand side, you've got 4 different types of employee, effectively. You've got your apprentice, your developing employee, your skilled employee, and then your expert employee. So it's really important to think about the person that you're managing and the best style to adopt for that individual. So there's no point in hiring a really highly skilled expert and then sitting on them and micromanaging them, so to the point where they think, I've not got the freedom to kind of express myself and do my job, because someone is literally sort of telling me what to do, and why did they pay me to do it if they're not going to let me do it? Whereas at the other end of the career scale, the apprentice will need a lot more hands-on and instruction and a lot more support. So it's just about adopting your style to suit the needs of the individual. Okay. So in terms of line manager responsibilities, you do have quite a big list of things that you will face at different times in your career. So just appearing on your screen now is a list of probably the key things that as a manager you'll be faced with. Now, an experienced manager who's been doing this for a while may well have if you were ticking these off, you may be able to say, well, I've done, pretty much most of them already. Whereas a new manager might think, well, actually, I've never had a flexible working request, or I've not done a grievance or disciplinary yet, or I've not been through a redundancy process. So please be don't be too harsh on yourself and think, well, gosh, there's a lot to know and I'll need to know it all today. It's something that you learn and develop as your career moves on. So you're not expected to know all of this on day one, and the support on hand from your line manager and also from HR. So if you're a retained client of ours, we can help you navigate these scenarios, and as much help as you need in terms of even scripting for meetings and supporting in meetings, whatever help you need to go from sort of where you might feel you're being handheld a little bit in the first time you do something, to the point where you become expert at handling, for example, a grievance or a redundancy or a performance management discussion with an employee. So help is at hand with Cornerstone and also your line manager. So just a little point of reflection here. So we've got a couple of these going throughout the slides. So rather than just to sort of keep us on track with the time, just think about the question on the screen, and think about the best managers that you've had in your career and what attributes spring to mind. But we would actually like to get a little bit of insight from you on this one. So if you could just all jump into the chat and type some one-word answers. Oh, apologies, go back up. One-word answers about the attributes of the managers that spring to mind when you think about the best manager that you've had in your career. So Rob's going to keep an eye on the chat and the answers that come through. But if we give you sort of up to 60 seconds just to type some answers in there, and then Rob will just feed back on some of the things that you're saying. So please take a moment to give us your thoughts.
Okay, some good answers coming in already. So Phil says they believed in me, and that's a big thing. So not only have they brought you into the organisation, but they actually believe you can deliver what you've been brought in to do. That's great. Mm-hmm. Bev says visionary and coach. Fantastic. Emma, supportive. Tim, personal, relational, trusting and fair. Mm-hmm. Deb's put caring. Mm-hmm. Anthony, reliable. Ben's put supportive and speaks directly and clearly, so you know exactly where you stand. That's also really important. Ken's put nurturing, and John's put supportive and fair. Yeah, and a few extra ones there: trustworthy and listens. Yeah, there's some really good attributes there. Wow, that's really good. And how nice to hear that those are things, and hopefully those are things you've all experienced from good line managers. You're very blessed if your manager currently is like that as well. And these are what the kind of, in terms of our research, these are the things that people are saying makes a good line manager, and how reassuring that we're kind of on the same page, aren't we? What you're saying is, we've got listener supported. Those ones came through, didn't they, Rob? It's quite a lot of the ones that people were saying the attributes they liked are on our list. Absolutely. There's some really good synergy there. Yeah, great stuff. Okay. So it's important to recognise that you really do have a strong impact on your employees. I mean, that very first slide was talked about the impact on mental health. You as a manager are really important, not only to performance, morale and engagement, but a poor manager can impact on the results, turnover and recruitment costs for the business. So you can be an agent for positive action, or you could actually sort of be detrimental if you act in the way of a poor manager. And one thing, this is a sort of a personal reflection point, if management doesn't excite you, so if you're currently in a management role, and it might be that you were kind of a team expert on something, within the business, and then you've been promoted to manager because you've been there a while and it's been given to you as a new responsibility. If that responsibility doesn't excite you, it's important to recognize that early on. And it says that take a different path, but first of all, we'd say speak to your manager about that. It could be that with some training, support, coaching, you
begin to enjoy the management role more. But if you reach a point where you're thinking, do you know what, this isn't for me, it's really important that you speak to your line manager, because it may be that you could be redeployed or reassigned to another role, because management isn't for everybody. It doesn't excite everybody as a role. Some people really relish it, other people don't enjoy it, and you want to come to work and enjoy your work. So that's just something to take away personally and reflect on as individuals. Okay, so in terms of the role, it says here, new role, new behaviours required. If some of you may not be new to management, but if you are new to management, it's really important that you do adopt a new style, a new sort of behavior. We don't want you to be sort of fundamentally a different person, but it's about how you behave and lead. That's important. So some things on screen here: being an early adopter of new systems. So say if the organization is adopting a new CRM system, for example, you need to be a bit of a cheerleader and pioneer for that, and not one of the, because it might be that you worked in a team and then you've been promoted and now you're managing that team. Within that team, there may be some naysayers and people who go, well, new system, or we've been here before, that's not going to work. You need to be the one who is championing and sort of encouraging positivity, embracing the change. You need to ensure that there's a support network for you as well, and that's going to be from your line manager and people like HR, so that if you do face challenging situations at work, you have that support to lean on to help sort of navigate those scenarios. And then you need to drive the team to perform, even if you're not apologies, fully behind the decision. So it might be that something's been implemented and you know that there might be some grumbles, but personally it's for the greater good for the business. You need to basically drive the team to perform and be fully behind that. And that might mean adopting how you would have behaved had you been a team member, not a leader. Okay, so another little reflection point to take away: what will you need to stop doing in your new or existing line manager role to be successful, and how will you make this happen? So that's kind of a little bit of homework. Think about, is there anything you're doing now in terms of the way you're sort of acting or behaving that might need to have a little bit of a shift to make you more successful as a line manager? Okay, and that's all about this next slide, the mindset shift. Not easy to say. Management is not about having one-to-ones and carrying on with the previous day job. Your new role is to get the best from others, to leverage your skills to produce a high-performing team. So it is a fundamental shift. And here we've got a visual that kind of really picks up on that. So in your new role, it's about things like this: owning the results of yourself and of others as well. Whereas as a non-manager on the right hand side, you're just responsible for your own results. So here you're driving the performance of a wider group of people, and you have to be accountable and responsible for that. So I'm not going to read out the rest of those, but you'll have those to reflect on when you get the slide deck afterwards. Okay. So new expectations to do. So on previous slides, we talked a bit about the kind of responsibilities of a line manager. So I'm not going to focus too much on that now, but the bit that kind of interests me more in the thing to focus on is the how to do it. So because management, a lot of people know what to do, but it's the behaviours and the how that are really key to your success as a line manager. So here we've got things like demonstrating the values. Your organisation will probably have a set of values in terms of how they want people to behave. You really need to role model those, demonstrate them, and be an ambassador of the values and the brand. Behave in a way that people trust you. Seek and accept feedback, really, really important one. As managers, many of you might be new to management or been recently promoted. It's important that you are open to and receptive to feedback, because you will make mistakes. Things won't always go to plan. So it's important that we learn from those and move forward. It's all part of personal growth. Okay, so this is a key part of the training. So 5 key focus areas for new managers, because you might be thinking, gosh, I've learned a bit already. Where do I even begin? So we've got 5 key areas that we're going to cover on the next few slides. So first one, getting to know your team. Secondly, understanding expectations, setting that direction of travel, creating the plan, and then managing the team. So I've got some really handy hints and tips of things that you can be doing as managers for success. So point 1, get to know your team. And this is about understanding their goals and their progress. That's going to be through one-to-ones. Understanding what keeps individuals engaged. Not everybody's going to be motivated by the same things. Be open about your style and seek feedback yourself, and identify skills and knowledge within the team. So this is kind of almost getting to know them in terms of their job, what they're doing, what's expected of them, and keeping them interested and engaged and feeding back. Second part of getting to know your team is actually getting to know them personally. So we've got some questions on screen here just to sort of ponder and think. We've got a manager there scratching her head going, does she really know her team? What do you know about them? Do you know sort of, their sporting interests? Do you know if they're a Stockport County fan like Rob here, or if they're on the side of the Blues or the Reds? It might be important if you're having that water cooler chat the next day and you don't know that their team had a catastrophic loss. And that might be why they're looking a little bit downhearted the next day at work. So it's not just sort of it's not just sort of idle chit chat. I think there's some value in those water cooler moments, and especially if your team members might be remote. Do you know when their birthday is? Are you going to send them that message? It's really nice to be remembered on your birthday. Maybe not so much when it's a big birthday. We've had some of them in our office, and you're like, yay, and oh no, that means I've got a big birthday now, and I'm a little bit older. But genuinely, it's nice to know some of the personal things about your team members, so that you come across as a more authentic manager who's genuinely interested in them as a person, not just about the results they're going to achieve for the business. Okay, so point 2 then is about expectations of you. You really need to understand, as this line manager, have you studied your job description? Do you know what your new responsibilities and expectations are? If you're in any doubt, talk to your line manager. You need to know what your objectives are, because they're going to be cascaded down through that team as well, and you're going to sort of achieve through your team. So understand what's needed of you, and if necessary, reach beyond your normal network for help. So what we're saying there is it might be that your line manager can help you with some of the things, but could you benefit maybe from a mentor outside of the business? I know Rob and Nikki have sort of coaches and mentors that they lean on for expertise as and when needed, and there's some real value in doing that. So use LinkedIn, leverage your network, and try and build some contacts that could be helpful to you as a manager. Next one then is point 3, is setting the direction of travel. So aligning the task to the team, looking at the skills and behaviours needed. So if the team have any skill gaps or kind of behaviour gaps, could training support that? Do you need to recruit? Deal with any potential flight risks. So, it could be that you're going through a period of change and a bit of disruption, and there's some people you think, gosh, if I lost that person, it could be catastrophic to the team. So really kind of understand how people are feeling, keep close to them, particularly through change, so that you can manage anything like that. And then make succession plans. So if you did lose someone key, what plans have you got in place to upskill other members of the team, so that they can pick up responsibilities and perhaps grow into new roles themselves. Okay. Then creating your plan. So basically create the plan, make sure everyone understands it, is bought into that plan, and that individuals understand their role in it, and then connect with your line manager to ensure the plan has focus. So it's really important that you don't just write a plan and don't get that checked off by your line manager, so that you're on the same page and you've got that kind of golden thread from what the organisation is trying to achieve right down to the individual levels within your plan. And then lastly, managing your team to deliver. So a key part of this is providing ongoing feedback. People need to know how they're doing, what's going well, but then also what could be improved. And we've got a session that we can deliver on feedback. It's such a key part of management that it's got its own sort of dedicated training session, and Rob and I have delivered that to other clients. So we've got some really good content. If that's something that you think either yourself or other managers in your business could benefit from. And then quickly address any problems. Problems can and do arise in management. Things don't go to plan. So it's important that you nip things in the bud and tackle them quickly, which leads on to my next slide, which is about dealing with poor performance. It happens, but it's how you deal with it, which is, how you'll get through it, basically. So links back to that feedback. Feedback must be honest and timely. Don't let individuals remain unaware of poor performance. Please don't store it up for the annual appraisal. Nip it in the bud, tell them at the earliest opportunity and in an appropriate way. Give them the opportunity to address it, and then set clear objectives and expectations for improvement. Dealing with poor performance is an area that we deal with a lot at Cornerstone with our clients. We work with them, and we can help you create performance plans, manage capability, and if necessary, disciplinary situations. So that's something that we're very helpful with if ever you do need that help.
And I think that's quite a key point there, because we often get approached with issues that have been underlying for several months or even years in some cases, and trying to deal with that because it's now become a major problem is very difficult when there's no groundwork in place. Yep. So having those regular discussions, raising points, giving specific, clear feedback of where something hasn't gone quite right and what good looks like is really useful. But what's also really useful on that point is documenting it, so that you've got a paper trail of where that conversation has been had. And when you start seeing themes where things haven't been, improved to the required level, then you can start to take some more formal action. But without that paper trail, it's very difficult. Yeah.
But absolutely, Rob, thank you for that. But sort of just to kind of reinforce that, you should never sort of sit on things or just hope they'll turn around by themselves. Quite often they do need that intervention. Sometimes someone does realise they've made a mistake or does sort of turn things around independently, but quite often they do need that support and direction from the line manager. Sometimes that needs to be put into a framework for either sort of disciplinary or capability or a performance improvement plan, but we can help with any of those types of scenarios. So that we're kind of very helpful in those areas. Okay, so next one then, and Rob, you can chip in on this one as well if you like, but sort of relationship with HR. So some of you may have some internal HR support, or it might be part of somebody's role within your business, but a lot of our clients are small to medium-sized businesses without their own HR department. So we are kind of an extension of their business with that. So lean on HR. That's what they're there for. As it says there in the top right, you don't have all the skills you need to do some of these things that you need to do. So lean on HR and they will support you when you need to. People management belongs to you. It's a key part of your role. You're not just a task person as a manager. You have to manage people, and that will take up a lot of your time. So you need to kind of recognize that. And then find out about wellbeing support, not only for yourself, but for your team. And that's something that Rob has quite a lot of insight into, and we can help with sort of benefits provision for staff wellbeing, so things such as employee assistance programs. Rob has a partner that he works with on that, if that's an area that you want to invest in. Okay.
No, so, I would just say on that, absolutely reinforce what Nicola says. We are absolutely there to stand alongside you when you have issues. Ultimately, the responsibility will always sit with the manager, whether that's a business, or I know we've mentioned business a lot, whether it's a charity or a church as well, because I know we've got everyone represented here today. We will absolutely sit alongside you, attend meetings where necessary, but ultimately that decision will always sit with the manager. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Okay. So your learning journey then, and recognize that it is a journey. You're not at the destination yet. You're going to learn as you go. And there'll be managers that Rob and I've worked with and the rest of the team where they've been in management for 30 years and then there's still something that gets thrown at them that I've not done this one before. So they'll always, and things evolve, don't they? I mean, we didn't know 3 years ago that we'd be suddenly thrown into working agile or working from home, with the pandemic. So sometimes you have to literally be very dynamic and learn as you go. And it can be quite seat of your pants sometimes in management. So it's you don't have everything in your toolkit on day one. You will need to learn, but a good thing to do is to identify where your knowledge and skill gaps are, and it might be that some of the future sessions that we're running will help you plug some of those gaps in some way. Get feedback from colleagues. Really important that you get feedback, and in a sort of 360 way. So from your team members, from your line manager, from your peers, from customers, external parties that you work with. Seek out feedback to help you improve and grow as a manager. Then make time to step back, think, and build on those skills. So building some time for personal development and training. It's really important that you kind of protect some time within your calendar for that. And then really important, learn from any mistakes that you make and be transparent with the team. It just all adds to that authentic leadership, and you'll build sort of respect and trust within the team for that. Okay, so another little reflection point then. As a manager, you've got responsibility for how your team feels about their work, but consider what makes you excited about the challenge. And if you have any concerns, do share them with your line manager, because it might be that you do know there's a big meeting coming up, or a big presentation, or you've got to do an absence meeting for someone who's gone off long-term sick, or you've got to do a disciplinary grievance, and you might be a little nervous about apologies, it's just jumped ahead, a bit nervous about this. So it's important to sort of express those to your manager and get support from them, because they've probably been there and done it, got the t-shirt before you, and we'll have some good pointers to help you with that. Okay, so last little section then is on hybrid workers. So a lot of us do manage people who work remotely, either fully remotely or part remotely. And it's hybrid working can be fantastic in terms of giving people work-life balance. There can be lots of benefits for the individual in terms of managing around sort of family responsibilities and so on. And it can often enhance your talent pool by, if you can employ people who can work from home, it might mean you're tapping into a wider talent pool, especially because recruitment, it's certainly challenging at the moment. Rob and I are finding that some of the key roles we're hiring for our clients, there's a bit of a drought of some good candidates for some of those. So if you can be flexible, allow people to work from home, then that can help the business. So agile working is about working within the guidelines of the task, but without the boundaries of how you achieve it. And that can include flexible working from home. And then remote working is where an employee inputs into the organization without being physically present in the organization's official location. And that might be full-time remote or part-time remote. Doesn't involve any gymnastics like that guy was doing there. So our top tips then for managing hybrid workers: being a good manager is key. So everything we've said so far in this session is still important, just because you're not seeing them physically on site. Set a positive example, set standards and expectations. Probably more important, are you expecting them to do sort of a daily check-in email with you, or a weekly, team meeting? How are you going to be checking in? So it's important that you set those out from an early stage. Key to this is clear, smart objectives. So this is another session that Rob and I can deliver about sort of managing performance and setting objectives and managing against objectives. So that's an area that you need help with. We've got another whole training session on that. Focus on the output and the outcomes, because often flexible workers will work at different times of the day. So it might be that they work within school hours, then pick up the kids and then log on again and do an hour or so in the evening. So if you're just focused on the 9 to 5, it might be that they're achieving some of their work sort of out of hours. So if you've got the flexibility that they can work within a wider time frame, that might help. Apologies, it's jumped ahead again. Celebrate success and share learning. I think really important, this one, if you have got remote workers, because sometimes they might feel a little bit forgotten. So make sure that you don't just do the pat on the back for someone who's literally physically in the office with you. Remember those remote workers and include them and celebrate and share success with them. Embrace that technology. So we've got a lot of clients that work with remote workers, and they'll have WhatsApp chats, they'll have team meetings on Teams or Zoom, but make sure that you leverage the technology to stay connected, to help build those relationships and keep that team bonded. And something you might want to do is create a team charter. So this is something where you kind of almost like a way of working when we have got remote workers, and what goes into that charter you can dictate, but this is sort of an agreement within the team, not just led by you as a team manager, but this is how we're going to make this successful when we have got people who are remote. Okay, so literally at the wrap up stage now, we're really close to the end, and just a couple of nice visuals to just before we finish. The bosses we remember, certainly bosses I remember, are ones that not just focused on the task, but make you feel kind of involved as well. And I love this one on the left, the KPI keeps them interested, keep people informed, involved and inspired. So not just about the more common interpretation of KPI. And then the visual on the right there, I really like, and I won't read those out, but just have a little read and ponder on those. But that's really kind of connected with me. I think I saw this. I follow quite a few people on LinkedIn, and kind of pinch bits of inspiration as I find them, and this was on LinkedIn, and it really chimed with me about kind of the type of bosses. And I'm very thankful to say, I'm not just saying this because he's on screen now, but Rob and Nikki are that kind of bosses. They really are. I'm getting him embarrassed now, but really are. That it's feel very blessed at Cornerstone that we have leaders that are very much role model, you know, sort of, you know, an ideal boss, I'd say.
Okay, moving swiftly on, Nicola.
Go on. I'm making you blush now. Okay, so a little bit of homework for you, because we've crammed a lot in, but we want you to sort of pause and reflect and do something with this knowledge. So we're going to send you, along with the slide deck, we're going to send you a management style self-audit where you can kind of answer the questions and then pinpoint the type of manager which is your dominant style, and then also consider the other ones and when they're appropriate. Just to say that we're not saying there's one best fit. You have to be flexible. And then action planning. So your bit of homework as well is consider what you're going to do differently to enhance your effectiveness as a line manager, maybe with some inspiration from what you've heard today. And one way to sort of position that as a nice, easy way to remember is, what are you going to continue doing? So what's working well for you? What are you going to start doing that you're not currently doing that you ought to be doing now you've heard about it maybe? And what are you going to stop doing? So what are those things, those behaviors that are not effective, or those tasks that are not working that you need to stop to enhance your effectiveness? So a little bit of homework there. And very last slide, I'll flip back to Rob, and Rob can just cover this next bit.
Yeah, sure. So as we said, this is the first module of 10. So we're covering a wide topic of HR subjects over the next 10 months. So it's one a month. They'll follow a very similar format to this, but obviously as this is the first, there may be points that we need to do differently in future. So we will be asking for any feedback that you have on how we could change things to make these sessions work even better for you. At the moment, the Eventbrite links haven't been built, but I will be getting those done this week. So what we'll do as attendees of our first workshop is we'll give you first rights to book into any of the following sessions. So I will send you an email telling you that the sessions are available to book. Okay, so I think that's the final slide now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just a thank you from us. What I will do now is stop the recording. And once the recording's stopped, we've got an opportunity then for you to ask any questions, either unmute yourself and ask openly, or if you want to use the chat, then you absolutely can do that. So I will just quickly stop the recording. In fact, I think, yeah, there we go.